Nathan and Delitha, thank you so much for joining me here on the Homeschool Sanity Show. And we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. But before we do that, I would love to have you tell us more about yourselves and your family.
Hey, Melanie, thanks for having us. We're super excited to be here. My name is Nathan D. Myers. That's my professional handle out there in the universe, but my mom calls me Nate. And I am a third generation preacher's kid, a long line of people in ministry. I went to seminary, thought I was going to go work for the church, and my dad planted churches for 40 years. So I thought I was going to be following in his footsteps, but the Lord made me a little bit different and led me out of full-time ministry and missions, where I spent a couple of years in Russia doing mission work and studied Russian language and taught English through the Bible and did all that in my literally in my teens. I was 19 to 21 while I was in Russia, and was a part of a college Bible program and missions program that I was a part of. And but after that, I was just like, I think I'm not maybe bent for institutional church ministry and things like that. And the Lord just called me right out. He said, "No, you're an artist. I made you an artist. I want you over here," and started plugging me into all kinds of things. So I toured with my brothers for about 7 years, leading worship and doing some pop music. And in those years, I was directing music for Kids Who Care at the Scott Theater in Fort Worth, Texas, where I met my beautiful wife, Delitha, who was also directing music with me for a summer camp at Kids Who Care. And then in 2005, I got bitten by the film bug, did my first feature as an actor in 2005, and then spun off into 20 years of film industry design and acting opportunities. So that's a little bit about my background. But in 2014, Delitha and I felt very called kind of back into a more intentional view towards the arts and film industry, and keeping Jesus in mind as we moved into that space, more so than the first 10 years. Well, the first 10 years we were just kind of doing whatever, but this last 10 years have been very intentional. So that's a little bit about me.
And I got my start. I went to school. I got a BFA in musical theater, a master's degree in drama. I studied abroad in Ireland, and I was a professional actress on stage for about 10 years. And then when we had our first child, when she was about 4 months, maybe 5 months old, I went back and I did a show. And it was terrible for me because I just felt emotionally conflicted. I felt guilty and I was not enjoying my life. And so after that experience of my husband bringing up the baby and me breastfeeding in the back of the theater and feeling very judged, I stopped performing at that moment after that show, and I just focused on my kid and focused on being a mom and being very present in her life. And then shortly after that, we started creating a movie together because of all the things we were seeing on TV and in the movie theaters, and realizing, there's nothing I really want to show her that has God in mind and has a good, clean message, doesn't have a worldly agenda. And so we kind of started off into movie making because of my daughter, for me anyway.
Mhm. Wonderful. And I know that you homeschooled. Are you still homeschooling?
I do. Yes,
Okay.
I started homeschooling when Aurora was 4, and we've done everything. We've done all of it. And now she's 12, and we finally have a good rhythm. I get her. I get what she needs and what excites her, what makes her want to cry. And so finally here we're in a good rhythm. And then I have a 3-year-old who is a boy, and he's completely different. And I don't know what I'm going to do with him. I'll homeschool him, I'm sure, but he is different.
Yes, they are different. Now, why did you choose to homeschool your daughter initially?
My One of my best friends, her name is Sarah, and she's actually in the movie that we're out talking about right now. But we were resident actors at a theater, and I loved her, just absolutely loved her. But she did not know the Lord. She was a very typical actor. And so we didn't connect deeply ever. But she's so fun and a lovely person. And so then I guess like 15 years later or so, we are visiting a church because his dad had retired and we were looking for a new church. And so we were visiting and we would go to this church and I'm standing there, I'm singing, and I hear this gorgeous voice, this gorgeous alto to my right. And I look and it is Sarah. She is in this church standing next to me. And I my mind was blown. And so she told me that little seeds I planted all those years ago really spoke to her. She met some other people who really ministered to her, and she just turned over this new leaf, and she's just an amazing Christian woman now. And so I was in the process of writing this movie, and I had her in mind for one of the main parts because, some people stay with you, and she was just in my brain. And I said, can we get together? I have this movie I want you to be in. And so we started talking and really reconnected and really went deep into this relationship. And she, at that time, had an amazing 5-year-old daughter who was the smartest thing I've ever seen. So intelligent, so amazing to talk to. She looks at you in the eyes and she holds conversations and just confident. And I said, what are you doing with her? Because whatever you're doing with her, I want to do with my daughter. Because at the time, Aurora was 1, I think, maybe 1.5. And she told me, and I said, great, sign me up. We were doing that. And so when Aurora was of age, we just did what Sarah told me to do because it was working.
Wow. That is a great story. I love it. I'm so glad that I asked you that question. Really, really cool. And I could go off on a tangent about about it, but I won't, because now we are going to shift gears and talk about parent-child relationships. So, what do you think are the most important ingredients of a strong parent-child relationship? And then, how do you think, both of you, that those ingredients for a good, strong relationship have changed, if they have?
So for me, I know that it depends on the kids. So what my relationship with my daughter is already looking very different than my relationship with my son. A lot of people out there will say, you are the parent, you are not their friend, but with my daughter, I am her friend. And I think when COVID happened, it became very important that the parent have some sort of friendship with their child because it's just us in the house most of the time. I mean, we were different. We went out into the woods and hung out with cousins, but I'm the one she's with most of the time. And if I don't have a great relationship with her, she's not going to want to be with me. So fortunately, God gave me a lovely daughter who is a perfectionist and a people pleaser. And so she rarely needs to be redirected. We redirected her quite early in her life. She told one lie one time when she was 4, and she still remembers it because she got in trouble. She had consequences. She still talks about it, especially with her brother, because she'll catch her brother lying. She's like, "What about him?" He's different. So as if she gets caught doing something, we just course correct, and it's just like a single sentence changes her. And she'll never do it again. So she's different. And so with me, it's all about listening with her and affirming her and definitely not criticizing her. I had a lot of criticism growing up, and I have issues now. And I'm sure we all have issues, but it's really hard for me to get criticism because of how my mother addressed me growing up. I never could do many things right. Just little things. Even like I'd sing a song, she'd go, I didn't like it. I like it when you sing higher. Okay, thanks. Little things like that. And so with my daughter, I try not to criticize her and I try to listen. Sometimes she'll say, what do you think about this drawing? Because she's an artist. And I'll have to really think and listen between what she's saying. Like, does she actually want pointers? Or does she just want me to say, you are very talented? Mm-hmm. And usually she just wants the affirmation. So I think it's listening, being present, and speaking kindness to her, and not cutting her down. Then there's the boy, and I haven't quite figured him out yet. He is tough. He is not a people pleaser. he does not care what you think. We've tried lots of different sorts of consequences. Have we found anything that truly works with him yet as at three?
Deprivation works for him pretty well. If you threaten to take away the thing that he's the most interested in at any given moment, and you're going to remove that and deprive him of something that's very important to him at that time, then he becomes quite a bit more compliant. He's still manipulative about it, but he's he's more compliant.
Yeah, he is something. And he's three, so I think it is a little different too. But right
Hmm.
now, our relationship with him is he wants a playmate all the
Hmm.
time. And so
Hmm.
a lot of times it is making ourselves stop doing what we want to do. Like we love working, and so we are often working, and he'll just, I want to play, and we'll have to
Hmm.
stop and go, be the good parent,
Jump on the
Hmm.
trampoline.
Hmm.
pick up the
Hmm.
toy and play with him, be present with him. But I think over time, if you look at generations, I mean, this generation, I think, is about balancing being a buddy with your kid and still being a parent, still having authority,
Hmm.
having that nice balance. The generation before, like with me, us and our parents, it seemed like it was all about being presenting a perfect image in a way.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like my aunts would always make sure that my cousin's hair was perfect and that they had all the
Hmm.
bows and the frills. And I remember in high school, it was really important that we wore Guess or Calvin Klein. It was all about what we looked like and how awesome we were. And my mom, she never really tried. We didn't have conversations. Right now in this generation, I think we have conversations, and we're very open to, okay, is that what we need to talk about today? Great, let's talk about it. Let's explore that. Whereas in our generation before, it was very like, no, 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 we don't talk about these things.
Hmm.
Let's move.
That's true for me too, because my dad's a pastor and my parents are pure gold. They really are. They're some of the greatest people I know, and they have left an incredible legacy everywhere they've gone because they're true Jesus people and they really live it. And everyone that knows them knows that about them. And most people think that my parents are unicorns because they are so unique and unusual, even amongst pastors and people that are doing that type of church planting. And so they're wonderful people. They really are. But I had a similar kind of uh, less connected upbringing. In fact, I remember at some point in my teens realizing that we didn't talk about stuff, deep stuff, like important stuff. We didn't talk um, gender or sexual issues at home very much. We didn't talk about behavior unless we were bad. And then I remember thinking at some point in my teens that dad's in the pulpit and he's preaching, and I'm thinking, and I have three brothers, so you have to kind of think about, and I don't have any sisters. It was just, my dad communicating to us, I believe telepathically. He's standing in the pulpit and he's intending everything he's saying is going to his boys, right? But maybe not the rest. If this is relevant to the rest of the congregation, that's fine. But I want my boys to hear this, and so I would feel like this feels a little personal. I don't. I think
Hmm.
this might be intended for one of us, and so that's how a lot of that type of discipling was probably happening in our lives as kids. Was coming through that instead of what we're doing today, which the difference for me is that with both Aurora and Maxwell, our son, we're we just have talks. We talk, and if there's, and the life addressed it a little bit, but if there's a tough question that we don't think that a 9-year-old should have the information about. I mean, Maxwell was asking us to watch YouTube videos the other day of birth. He was like,
Oh.
I want to see somebody having a baby. And and so,
You're like, okay,
okay,
we'll start with how.
Hmm. Hmm.
This is how it is.
Hmm.
right.
Hmm.
So there were some tough conversations, but those were things that left me with some issues too. That I really needed someone to be super direct with me when I was a teen. I really needed somebody to talk with me about just anything that might be pertinent that would have been on my mind. But I was the environment I was raised in was very tentative, and we're scared to talk about just anything because we're going to get judged, or if we're talking about that, then and I'm a parent and I struggle with that too. Well, I now have to admit my own weaknesses, and that's too vulnerable. And so the vulnerability factor, I think, is probably what has changed to a large degree, at least for me. That's what I see, is that we're more vulnerable with our own kids, and less scared of talking about the tough things or the weird things and the awkward things. We just kind of go for it, and we're a little more matter of fact. We just, well, this is the way it is. And most kids, we found, our kids particularly, especially were at her age, she asks a tough question, you answer it black and white, matter of fact, like it's just science, right? And she's like, oh, weird. And she moves on with her day. And
Right.
and so, for me, those are the big differences.
Excellent. Just an excellent answer. Okay, so now I want to shift to talking about what you both think are cultural trends or societal pressures that are potentially undermining healthy parent-child relationships.
Well, for sure, the things that kids watch are, I mean, if you watch any of the famous mouse company or their friend that also has, theme parks, they often will show parents as buffoons,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no authority there. And the kids can just run amok and do whatever they want. And there's sometimes some consequences, but the consequences don't necessarily come from the parents. And so that is just, if they watch that daily, weekly, it is in there. It's in their subconscious, this lack of parenting authority. And that does trickle down. And how those kids on those shows speak, it's always very sassy, very entitled. And we see that in today's youth, that entitlement, that they know better and they're smarter than their parents or anybody, really. And it just comes from that. And then all the YouTube stuff that you just scroll through. I mean, it is so hard to filter all of that. And then even if you filtered it a little bit, then you see an ad on YouTube or TikTok, especially, where it's from somebody evil, and they are trying to influence your kids, and they are influencing your kids. And it's usually very worldly and not biblically sound at all. And so it just all affects the kids' psyches.
Yeah, and I think that the tech and entertainment factor is real. In fact, we know that 260+% of what's produced in the market that's entertainment related is for adults or is not kid friendly. And less than 15% of what is produced out there might be considered kid friendly, and a far smaller percentage of that is considered maybe from a Christian worldview. And so that's kind of scary when you think about just the quantity of stuff that's out there. So that's part of it too. I think one of the biggest factors, though, is the boldness and the courage of parents to get more involved. That is a tough spot for people to be in, because they spend so much time at work. They might spend 60 hours a week. And, I remember, this poor lady at a town meeting talking to George W. years ago, saying, well, I work, and she's in her 60s, and she's like, I work 3 jobs. I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. And he says, oh, uniquely American, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, that is uniquely American. It's also kind of stupid that we fall for that. And because that's a bit of a deception, that I need to have all of these things. I have to have all of this money in order to sustain this particular lifestyle that we're trying to keep, instead of maybe embracing some Christian simplicity and doing with less, so that I have more time with my kids. And so that's a tough spot for all of us. We are speaking of entitled, the kids are entitled, but the parents are also a little bit entitled to what they think they deserve and envious of everybody else.
And I know like the homeschool mom, right? That's who
Mhm.
a lot of our listeners right here. We're different because we have taken a stand and we've said,
Mhm.
we are going to homeschool our kids. We're going to be the main influence. But talking from experience, okay, we do school in the morning and then I make lunch and then mama needs a break. So what do? I'm like, here's the iPad, 3-year-old. And yes,
Mhm.
Aurora,
Mhm.
you can write on the other iPad. And she's pretty good. But,
Mhm.
the son is looking at you two kids. And I've noticed even the language, like they'll say, oh my
Oh.
gosh, or something
Mm.
worse than that,
Mhm.
on
Mhm.
repeat,
Mhm.
because to the world, that's not bad. But in my home, we don't say those things. And so, that on repeat, that's going to affect what he says. It did it with our daughter when she was younger. We had to have an intervention. And so just little things like that.
Okay. Hold up. I think we got disconnected there. Hold on. I'm hoping we're going to come
Yeah,
back.
so we're
Okay. Okay. Can you?
sorry,
So I
we
could
froze.
not hear you there for a bit. Okay.
Hmm.
So it kind of froze up.
Absolutely.
So why don't you start from, you hear the language on YouTube and you don't use that. Just kind
Right.
of go from there. Okay.
So sometimes when my son's watching YouTube Kids, I'll hear some of the things they're saying, and they'll say things like "Oh my gosh," or things that are worse. And in our house, we don't say that, and so that does, I know, affect what kids say, because it did affect my daughter when she was about 4. I noticed, oh, she is saying this now because of what she has been watching, and so we had to have a talk about that. And it's just, oh, be careful, little ears, what you hear. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. It's very true. And so it's really hard to regulate that. And we just need to come up with boundaries. We need to come up with rules. And we as the parent need to sometimes not take the easy route. And I'm speaking to myself here, and just play and be present. Read a book to your kids. Do something else.
I have to do that too. I'm a bit of a workaholic. I'm if you're familiar with the Enneagram type 4, they call us dauntless and tenacious, and we just gnaw and get on something, go at it. And I'm like that with work. I'm like that with even a creative project or something. And so I get hyper focused on something, and so if the 3-year-old is climbing on my shoulders while I'm deep into a project, I have to pause and especially and Lord taps me on the shoulder a lot, like stop working, play with your kid, go outside, take a walk. And so I have to be super sensitive to that and make sure that I am as involved as I need to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So you've really been talking about entertainment and how it can affect our kids, which will in turn affect the parent child relationship. Do you have some thoughts about how entertainment can be used in a positive way for the parent child relationship?
Well, one of the things that I am an advocate of is family movie night. If you recall, like in the 90s, we had TGIF and all the families would gather on Friday nights and watch all these great family shows. And I loved that. And it was like we'd get pizza and it was just like a weekly thing. And it impacted me in my childhood.
Hmm.
And so I'd love families to do that. I know a lot of families do still. But have family movie night. Maybe it's Friday and you get a pizza and you watch a movie. But the problem is, what movie are you going to watch? Because a lot of the movies out there, like I'm a researcher and I'm like, okay, is this a good movie? Is there anything bad? And I'll often go to like Dove Review or that's my favorite. But not all movies are on there because the filmmaker has to pay $200 for their film to be reviewed. Yeah, we know this because we have a movie, we want it to be reviewed, but we haven't done it yet. So um, But then if you don't do that, then I go to Common Sense Media. But Common Sense Media doesn't have a biblical perspective. And so they'll give you some advice like, oh, this is in the movie and this is in the movie. But they don't tell you all the little things and all the worldly things that are in a movie that I don't want, my children to be entertained by. I don't want it to become a normal thing in their world that, oh, this is okay.
Mhm.
So it's hard. But yeah, do family movie night. We created a lovely movie that I'd love everyone to use for family movie night. It's and there are other films out there like this.
Yeah. The parent. Oh, sorry. I thought we were frozen again.
Oh no, were we?
So the opportunity to use story to affect kids is a very real thing. We've been doing it kind of through storybooks since forever. We've been reading fairy tales and things like that. Which a fairy is an angel technically. If you look back at like what were the Europeans writing about, what were they doing, and so we're really kind of talking about divine stories. There's stories with a divine meaning. There's stories with something infused in it that's for us to learn. And Sleeping Beauty and Snow White and things like that, those were those types of stories. Sleeping Beauty, we named our daughter Aurora, by the way, because we were so fond of that particular Disney movie. But the idea that she is a type of or antitype to the type of Christ, and she's she's the church, and Jesus is the prince, and that is infused in that story. That's what it means. That's what it is, and that's what it always was. And if you set and you break down Sleeping Beauty, it is just the world through the evil one coming in to put the church to sleep and to put people to sleep, and Jesus and the Spirit of God is coming in as the Prince to wake you up and to give you this kiss of life. And so that story is quintessential parable. That's what it is. And our master Jesus was the quintessential perfect storyteller. And so I think parents just need to get a little more involved in that type of storytelling with their kids. We're kind of doing it in the meta where we've made a parabolic movie that's in an unusual package. Like it's campy, it's public school versus homeschool, it's fun, it's silly, it's a satire. It's a little bit unusual of a package for something like a parable, but that's what we're doing. That we're kind of doing it for everybody. But I think if parents will get a little deeper in their own intention, they can use story at home to help teach a lot of things that otherwise might be boring to their kids. And that's why Jesus taught in parables. He said that you guys don't get it. And in fact, what I have to say is dangerous, really. It's dangerous to the empire. It's dangerous to the religious establishment. And so what I have to say, I'm going to hide it in parables, and then you can think about it. You can ruminate on that, and then you can pick this up at some point. And so I'm convinced we could be doing more of that if we were more awake to that style of teaching. And I love this quote from Madeleine L'Engle, who wrote Walking on Water and A Wrinkle in Time. If you're not, we all know A Wrinkle in Time. But she said, if adults are not going to get it, write it for kids, because kids will get it. And so we don't give them enough credit. And adults tend to be a little more hard-hearted towards things like that and beaten up by the world. And so I think the parents that are listening who have softened their hearts before the Lord, and they are seeking God, and they're seeking to do the right thing for their kids. I think that spending more time in those kind of fun and interesting parabolic storytelling, and finding the parables of Jesus and making that interesting to their kids in a fun way, or finding movies. My dad did. My dad would find movies that were mainstream and figure out how to pull the heart and the soul and the themes out for us. We always thought it was great if you got to watch a movie clip of like Braveheart at church or something like that. It's like we're like, wow, we're at the cinema, and but we can do things like that too at home. And parents who are thinking spiritually can take a mainstream project, even one that you think might be a little unsavory for your kids, and be like, well, I don't know if we should be watching this right now, but we could watch it together and talk about it and discuss it. And my dad did. He was not afraid of that kind of stuff. He would try to pull the heart right out of something that was a little bit salty,
Hmm.
and explain it to us in a way that helped bring out the spiritual truths. I think parents can do that too.
Hmm. And I'm sure you also mean that we can not just find spiritual truths, but we can also find counter biblical worldviews in movies. And it's important to
Absolutely.
discuss that too, right?
Absolutely. There's no shortage of that, Melanie. I mean, that's most of it. So, in fact, one of the reasons that we're doing what we're doing is because most of you listening have had this experience where you got excited about something that looked reasonable, like you went to the cinema to go watch it with your kids, or you downloaded it to watch it at home, and then right in the middle of it, you were like, "Oh no, we're right in the middle of some subject matter that is highly inappropriate." And or it's an ideological position that we do not believe, and we do, and then your kids are going, wait a minute, what is this? And suddenly you are foisted un, just it's a shock to your system. You go, oh no, I'm now going to have this conversation right now with my whole family. Thank you so much, movie company, for putting me in this position that now I have to have this conversation, and I didn't want that. That's not why we came here. We came here to have fun. We came here to enjoy being here. We did not come here to be programmed or propagandized or to hear from some ideologue. And so we've all been there. We've been there, and that's one reason we're doing what we're doing is we want to try to help fill that void, because there's no shortage of that kind of material out there. But you're right. We need to talk about that stuff too and go, hey, this is a false belief system.
Hmm.
This is fiction. This is propaganda, and be able to point those things out.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell us more about the movie that you are referencing. What's the title of it? Where can we find it? And do you have any other resources that would be of interest to families?
Yes. So our movie is called Aria Appleton Shines, and it is available on Prime Video. So just go to Prime Video, search Aria Appleton, Aria Appleton, and it should pop up. You can buy it or rent it. There's a trailer there that you can watch to see, do I want to or not? And if you want to dive in further, we have a parent and leaders guide. There's 6 chapters, and it talks about the different themes that are in the movie, like adoption, dying to self, honoring parents, and that sort of thing. And so we have scriptures that go along with those and some discussion points that you can talk to your kids about. And then we also have a worksheet that goes along with it for the littles, so that if you do have littles, they can be entertained and listening while you're having the talk with the bigs. And so that is on Give, Send, Go. And you can just give a penny if you want to, or you can give however much you'd like to, and we will send you a copy of the PDF. And so givesendgo.com.
Slash Aria Appleton.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just get on our website and you provide your email to us, we'll send you chapter 3, I think, out of that leader's guide, just for free, so you can check it out. We'd love to be able to be in contact with you and to email with you what we're doing and progress as the film unfolds. The film has just dropped at the last week of May. It went live on Prime Video. So whenever you're listening to this, this is a summer 2025 release. And so, we, depending on when you're listening, we want to keep you updated, and we hope to make more art. I don't like calling it content, because that just makes it sound lifeless and soulless. But we want to make more art that is parabolic, that can be of use to the kingdom.
And if you can't remember anything else, just go to ariaappleton.com and all the links are in there. But also, so there is a God message in the film, but we also have homeschoolers represented in the film. And we represent them in a really positive light. They're such a cool family. And so I bet a lot of your listeners will identify with someone in the film and just love that homeschoolers are represented.
Yeah, and that's
Well,
actually
yeah.
that's something that's not that's been an issue just in the last 100 years. I mean, how often do you see boldly presented Christians in Hollywood in a story,
Mm. Hmm.
and they're just not there very often. And so, yeah, I think, and there is the homeschoolers are represented, the public school is represented. No one is safe. We throw everybody under the bus to some degree to find the humor. And I
Hmm.
think you guys that do homeschool will absolutely appreciate some of that homeschool humor.
Well, fantastic. Now, I will be putting those links in the show notes, of course. But are either of you or both of you on social media of any sort?
Yes. So I personally, I really am just promoting my Instagram. My
Okay.
Facebook is set to private so that I can just, have lots of little private things. But yeah, Instagram, and it's /DLYTHA, I
Okay.
believe. I should probably check that out, actually. I don't know. I'll give it to you and you can put in the show notes.
Okay. I will. I will.
Delitha's name is so unique. If you just search
That's true.
DLYTHA on Instagram, you'll find her.
Hmm.
And I am at Nathan D. Myers everywhere. So nathndmyers.com. I'm at Nathan D. Myers on Instagram and on Facebook. I have a public personal profile on there, but I also have an actor director profile at Nathan D. Myers Actor. So if
Okay.
you want
But I
to
think
look me
better than connecting with us, if you could connect with the movie, Aria Appleton, it's got
Sure.
its own Instagram and Facebook and
Oh,
TikTok.
okay. It
And we've
does.
already
Wonderful.
populated a lot of things like behind the scenes and
Okay.
interviews. We won a Gold Crown Award from ICVM and for Best Comedy Feature, and we got his speech on there. And it's a fun social media site that you can just, there's lots of stuff
Okay.
to look
Yeah,
at.
and most of those are at Aria Appleton, or at Aria Appleton Film on Facebook. If you search at Aria Appleton on Google, it's probably going to show you several links out. But if you go to ariaappleton.com and click connect, you're going to see our link
It
tree
has
to
all those links.
all that
Okay.
social media.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect. Well, thank you so very much for sharing this with us and also just all of the thought and the philosophy that went into it as well. I think our listeners are going to be very eager to take a look at this movie. I know I am.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Also, we didn't talk about this very much, but the movie is a musical, and
Okay.
it has original songs in it that are super fun and very interesting, and a lot of the story and the messages in the lyrics of those songs. And so we hope you'll check out that soundtrack too, which is available at iTunes and Amazon Music and Apple Music currently.
Wonderful. Will do. Thank you again.
Thank you.